Senator Mullin.
And I'll try to be as brief as I can, but it's going to be a little longer because this is a personal story about my son. I'm very involved in traumatic brain injuries because of my son, Jim Mullin, who now wrestles at Oklahoma State at the age of 20. But at the age of 15, he had a traumatic brain injury, which led him to not even be able to walk, not be able to touch his nose, not be able to read, write. And at the time, he was a high school and freshman, nationally ranked, had wrestled all over the world for the junior world team. We knew something was wrong with Jim. And we had taken him every place. He'd been wrestling since he was a little kid and was absolutely amazing at the sport. But something just wasn't right. And we didn't know what it was. We'd sent him to several concussion specialists. We ended up getting referred to the Cleveland Clinic. And this is no backhand to the Cleveland Clinic, but the truth is if you speak to 12 neurologists, you'll get 12 different opinions. And we went to the Cleveland Clinic, spent 2 weeks at the Cleveland Clinic. And at the end of it, their conclusion was that it was in his head. Not in his head, like in his head, but mentally, they said, this is what the neurologist told us, that this is his way of telling us he doesn't want to wrestle anymore. We never pushed Jim at wrestling. Jim loved wrestling from the day he first stepped on the mat at 6 years old, and he never stopped it. He was a kid that was always looking for practice, wanted to go to practice, walked out of practice, and all the other kids would be crying, and you'd ask Jim how he was doing, and he'd say, oh, Dad, I loved it. And so we knew it wasn't right, but we said, well, okay, if it's nothing with neurology saying nothing's wrong with him, then we're going to go ahead and let him wrestle. Well, literally 3 months later, he's wrestling at Newton, Kansas. He gets hit in the head. I'm coaching, and he walks over to me, and he says, Dad, I don't feel good. And he looked at me and collapsed. Coded, had severe oxygen depletion. We, of course, rushed him to the Wesley Medical Center at Wichita, Kansas, and he's in the pediatric ICU there, and he woke up 26 hours later. He didn't know who he was, didn't know his name, didn't know who we were, knew we were somebody, but didn't know who he belonged to, didn't know what year it was. The only question he got right, and this is no political joke here, was who the president was. He said Trump. And, of course, President Trump found that hilarious. And then he started testing him. And they had him just do simple touches. And the issue was that he couldn't touch his nose. And then they got him up to walk, and here's an elite athlete, and he was shuffling his feet and had to put a safety belt on him. And the neurologists at the Wesley Medical Center told us, we'll go home and it'll eventually wear off. That's what we were told by the lead neurologist there. Fortunately, we got hold of the Center for Neural Skills in Bakersfield, California, and the founder of the place called Mark Ashley gave us a call while we were in the hospital, and he started asking for his medical records, and we started giving him all the medical records, and he said, has this happened, how long has this been going on? And he started hitting all the points, and the first time as a parent, it was like, we got somebody that actually got answers here. Well, what ended up happening was an 18-month journey for us being at the Center for Neural Skills and him learning every skill again. It's so hard to see your son that can't even put together a kindergarten puzzle. And before this happened, he was taking advanced classes in school, and not being able to hold a plank or be able to bring his feet up, and we couldn't. I mean, literally, doctor after doctor couldn't give us answers. They told us it was going to be 3 years of intense rehabilitation, and Jim's attitude was, he said, Dad, I learned it once, I can learn it again. So he had a good attitude by it, right? I still have problems with it. I don't think I've ever quit crying over it. One of the hardest things that I've dealt with as a parent to see your kid go through this. They said he could never wrestle again, said he would never be able to play sports again. Of course, he's defeated odds. Like I said, he's wrestling at the University or the Oklahoma State University right now. But my point of all this, the reason why this is so personal, and Chairman, I appreciate you indulging me in so much extra time, is because there's so much more we need to know. And with the reauthorization of the brain injury program, it gives families hope. It gives people the ability to have some place to turn. It gives researchers, those that are trying to dive into this, some more answers, because it's not the doctor's fault, it's not the neurology fault, it's not the Wesley Medical Center, it's not the Cleveland Clinic. I don't blame them. They did the best they could. It's just they did the best they could, and there's so much more that can be done. There's so much more studies that need to happen. There's so many more answers that need to be explained. Like, I didn't know a frontal lobe injury causes you to have, for adolescents, that it stunts your growth. We had no idea that until we were 3 months into it. And 3 months into it, his growth plates is closed. So Jim's going to be 5'3" the rest of his life, which is fine. But it's little things like that. If you had the information ahead of time, you can make better informed decisions, which we didn't have. So I appreciate this committee working in this manner. Senator Lujan, I hate that you started it with an emotional, because you got me emotional before I even started, and I don't cry, I promise you. Actually, I do. But I do appreciate this committee working in a bipartisan manner, because this is something that's important to all of us. We've heard the stories around here. So thank you. Senator Chairman, we don't always get along, but in this, I do appreciate your attention to it.
Thank you, and thank you. I mean, this is what real legislation is about. It comes from personal experience, and we thank you very much, Senator Mullin, for sharing your own experience, and we wish you some of the very best.